Hello, everyone. Thank you for all joining us today. We are really excited to spend this time talking with one about one of the most important parts of the college application process, the college essay. So, for many students, the essay can feel a little intimidating at first. You might be wondering things like, what do I write about? How personal should it be? What colleges are really looking for? So, the good news is that there is no such thing as a perfect essay. So, what colleges really want to learn is more about you, your experiences, your perspectives, your growth, and what matters to you. So, today, our goal is to help you understand how essays work, how to approach them with confidence, and how you can tell your story in a way that feels authentic and powerful. So, before we get started, let's quickly introduce ourselves. My name is Brittany Stubblefield. I work with the University of South Carolina. I spend a lot of my time, along with my colleagues here on this call, working with students from small town and rural communities as they navigate the college search process. So, tonight, we're also joined by Macy Lawton from Yale University, Kevin Rains from Auburn University, and Andrew Gilmore from the University of Arizona. Even though we all work at different universities, we share a common goal, which is helping students like you find the right college fit and to understand the admissions process. And one thing we can all agree on is the essay is the most meaningful way that students can tell your story. So this workshop tonight is made possible through the STARS College Network, which stands for Small Town and Rural Students. The STARS network is made of more than 30 colleges and universities, as you see here on the screen, across the country, including schools like Stanford, Yale, Auburn, USC, and many others. The goal of this network is so simple to make sure that students from rural and small town communities have access to the same college opportunities, information, and support as students as anywhere else. We also want to make sure students like you know that the college is possible and accessible no matter where you come from. So the STARS College Network supports students in several ways. First, admissions counselors travel to small town and rural communities to provide information about the college applications, financial aid, and scholarships. Second, STARS colleges offer free campus visit programs, which you can find on our website, where students can visit campus across the country and experience college firsthand. Third, there are virtual programs like tonight that help students learn about the college search process, affordability, and how to apply. And finally, the STARS institutions are building stronger support systems on campus to make sure students thrive once they arrive. Programs like this workshop are part of that mission, helping you feel confident and prepared throughout your college journey. So, now let's talk about what the college essay itself. So, when students hear the word essay, you may think of a school assignment, something formal, structured, and maybe can even be stressful. But the college essay is actually very different from your typical school essay. Think about it more of a conversation with the admissions office. Your essay helps the admissions counselors understand who you are, what matters to you, how do you think, what experience have shaped you, and your grades and test scores tell that one part of your story. But the essay helps us see the person behind the application. So when college reviews these applications, we look at several different pieces. First, what a student says about themselves. So this can include your personal statement and sometimes supplemental essays. Next, what a student does, such as a transcript or your extracurricular activities. And finally, there is what others say about the students, like letters of recommendation from a teacher or your counselor. The essay is powerful because it's one of the most important parts of the application, which is completely in your voice. It allows you to highlight things that may not show up anywhere else in your application. Now we understand what a college essay is. Let's talk about it in two main types of essays that you mostly likely encounter when applying to college. So one part of those types is a personal statement. So think of this as your main essay. Is usually the essay that goes on every college that you apply to if you're using platforms like the Common Application or Coalition. Because of that, it tends to be more general and focused on the person as you are. This is a chance to tell admissions officers about something that's meaningful in your life, maybe challenges you overcome, your experience that have shaped you, or something that helped you grow. It helps colleges understand your story, your perspective, and what matters to you. Most schools require this essay because it's such an important part of getting to know applicants beyond test grades and scores. The second type is your supplemental essay. These essays are usually specific to a particular college or university, so not every school requires them, but many do. The supplemental essay usually asks you to respond to a specific prompt like, why are you interested in a university? What community are you a part of? How will you contribute to our campus? This essay will help schools understand things like how you might fit within their community, what your interests are, and how you would choose to apply that to the specific school. So think about it in simple terms. Your personal statement tells colleges who you are, while supplemental essays help colleges understand why you and how the school might be a good match. Both are important, but they serve slightly different purposes.
Awesome. So I get the privilege to talk about personal statements. So as Brittany mentioned, personal statements are all about you. So this is really your opportunity to talk about yourself. I really love reading personal statements. They're all so unique. We get so many different backgrounds, so many different stories, and it's really cool for us as a university to just learn more about who you are. You know, if you're from a big school or from a small school, so often transcripts can look alike. A lot of, people take a lot of the same classes, but then the personal statement, that's when you really get the chance to shine and be yourself and really stand out. So again, this allows schools to learn more about who you are, your personality, your passions, and your potential addition to that school's community. So this creates a more holistic view of who you are. Again, this is much more than just your grades, your scores, your ranks. There's only so much a transcript can tell us. So we rely on things like a personal statement to really help fill in those gaps. So this is the one part of the application where you are in absolute complete control. What you write about, how you write about it, all of that. But I do want to talk about some common pitfalls that students tend to run into. These are things that I see very often when I'm reading essays. So these are things to really look out for. One of the top things that I actually see is that you spend the whole essay talking about somebody else. And now it is really easy to use a story of someone else or a time you helped someone else to really share your story. But I find that people spend more time talking about how the other person felt or how the other person reacted in that scenario rather than what you learned from a certain interaction with someone else or how you grew as a person. It's okay to talk about someone else, but make sure that we are really getting who you are, right? And then of course there's no end destination. So think about what your takeaways are from whatever experience it is that you're talking about. Make sure that we get that finality, that completion of your destination. Um, there's also a thing where there's often a lack of reflection on your experiences. So we have this great story, and it's a really cool story, I suppose, but we don't really see the journey. It's not just about the destination or the story. It really is about that journey and reflecting back on the experiences that you learned during that time. Um, trying to fit everything you've ever done into a few paragraphs also might be a common pitfall that we see. Um, we know that you only have a certain amount of time to talk about yourself. And I'm sitting here telling you, well, this is your one opportunity to talk about yourself. So you're like, all right, Kevin, I'm going to start writing. And you start writing everything down. We really just need the basis of who you are, your personality, but we can accomplish that in a much smaller terms. We can accomplish that in maybe a story rather than just your whole life, right? And then, of course, oversharing. Remember who your audience is. Remember that these are admissions professionals. These are people who read all of these applications. They're trying to see if you're a good fit to the school, and so it is important to not overshare. So you don't want people knowing too much about you in that personal essay. We are professionals. We do want to see you shine, but we don't want you to share more information than what you're comfortable with. And then what, of course, we're looking for in these essays. So the first thing that I want to talk about is fit. So, what type of community that we are looking to build at our specific institutions? Will you be a good roommate or a good classmate? And where will you end up on campus? Now, of course, all of these campuses are different. And a lot of times for a personal statement, it is going to be more general, a little bit more broad, because the goal is to send it to multiple schools, right? And so it is important to be able to structure yourself into any community in this sense. Could you find your community at multiple colleges? So it's important to be able to find that fit here. Some soft characteristics that we're maybe looking for is determination, grit, resilience. But we're also looking for things like empathy, kindness. And one thing that I really look for when I'm reading essays is all about that community. Again, how do you fit into our culture? How do you fit into our campus? That's a really big part of what we're looking for, because when I read these essays, I think, okay, this student is about to spend the next 4 years on this campus. Not only will they fit, but will they have a good time here? Will they enjoy themselves? Will they feel really isolated? Will they feel like they're not a part of this community? Right? So looking for that fit in the community is really important to us. How do I know what to write about? I love talking about this because I get this question probably once a week. The first things first, this is about you. Make it about you. We want to see that personality, as I mentioned before, but not only that, what is important to you, right? We want to see what your desires are, what your passions are, what your goals are. So what are the things that are important to you? Do you care about empathy? Do you care about helping others? Write about it. What do I need to know about you in, 2 or 3 pages? What can I learn from this essay about you? Right? That's really important to write about. And how have you become the person that you are? Most of you, when you're applying to the schools, some of you start as young as 16, but most of you are 17 or 18 years old. So in those 17 or 18 years, what has shaped you into the person you have become today? Just want to make a note. It is not possible to write a college essay that fits exactly what every college might be looking for. So please be yourself and trust in the process. My best advice is to just start writing. Think of something to write about and just start. The earlier you start, the longer you have to work on it, the more time you have for maybe your teachers or your counselors to take a look at it for you, make some notes, make some adjustments. Just start writing and see what happens. That's what I did, and it really helped me because I had tons of time to work it out if I wasn't super happy with it.
All right, how's it going, everyone? Andrew here from Arizona. So, we're going to do a personal identity exercise. So, what I want you to do is if you have a piece of paper, that's great. If you have your notes app or a note app on your iPhone or your Samsung, that's great too. So, go ahead and pull that up. I'll give you just a second, just anything that you can write on. And I'm going to be asking you 10 questions. Now, I'm going to read you the questions. You don't need an answer for all of these. You can have multiple answers for some, right? I know I did it yesterday. I was trying to prepare and see how I would answer this, and some of them I skipped. I didn't really have a good answer for, and others I kind of had a lot of answers. So we're going to take a look at these 11 items here and answer them on that piece of paper that you have, or in your notes app on your phone. So we're going to list 10 things that are meaningful and that describe you. Now, like Kevin said, a lot of times the hardest thing is just to start writing. So this kind of helps us to start writing. So right now, let's do this, and it'll be a fun exercise. So first question: your birthplace or places you've lived, and I'll do it too, just so I don't speed up too much with y'all. Number two, your cultural heritage. Number three, your faith, religion, or spirituality. Number four, your economic background. And this doesn't have to be complete sentences. We're just kind of getting notes out there, right? Number five, first language or languages that you use in the home. Number 6, ability/disability status. Number 7, family identity. This could be your birth order, the role you play in your family, if you take care of maybe some elder people in your family or younger people in your family, anything like that. So, family identity for number 7. Sorry, number 7. All right. Number 8, physical appearance. Number 9, any talents or superpowers. Number 10, any hobbies or interests. And number 11, other things that describe you. Okay. I am going to give you just a few more seconds because we're going to take this information and answer a few questions. If you want to scroll down on your notes app, or if you want to keep writing on that same piece of paper, and we're going to use these items that we wrote to answer those questions. And hopefully, this kind of gives you a good brainstorm of how to answer, how to start your essays. Okay, so let's go ahead and get to the reflection. Okay, so the first question, take a look at your list. Which identities do I think the most about in my everyday life? Now, I want you to think about every number we just answered as one of your identities, right? It's part of your identity. So, which of those identities do you think about most in your everyday life? For me, sometimes it's work, sometimes it's my home responsibilities. Sometimes it's I just want to get out there and play some tennis, right? So, those are all different kinds of identities. So, any one of those would be good for you to answer that. Okay. The next one, which of my identities do I know the most about? After that, which identity am I most proud of? So look back at your 1 through 11 and which of those are you like, oh yeah, this is what I'm leading with. The fourth one down there is which identity am I most comfortable sharing? Okay. So I know that there's some sensitive questions in there. And like Kevin was saying, we don't need to share what we don't want to share. So sometimes we can rely on the stuff we do want to share, right? And the last one is an identity that you'd love to explore more in college is. So maybe one of those items that you described that you want to just learn more about in college. I'll give you about 10 or 15 seconds to round that out. Perfect. So the purpose of this is so that hopefully this can kind of help you with your essays, whether it's a personal statement or it's one of the supplemental essays. Now that you've done this exercise, you kind of have the brainstorm and you're ready to go and start those essays and start those rough drafts. Okay. And I believe that Macy will help you with the following slides.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. So, hi, everybody. It's great to be on with you all this evening. I'm going to be talking, just like pivoting a little bit from talking about that longer personal statement or Common App essay, or however you feel most comfortable referring to that. We're going to talk a little bit about supplemental essays, which were referred to at the beginning of this session. And some of you might be really familiar with these. And for some of you, this might be a totally new concept. You might have been putting a lot of time and energy into thinking about that personal statement and maybe are, a little surprised to know that there's other writing that some schools will ask you to do. So, as we shared earlier, supplemental essays are additional essays or pieces of writing that tend to be unique to each institution. Not every institution will ask you for additional pieces of writing, and some might ask you for multiple or a bunch of shorter answers, or maybe a second personal statement of sorts. That's really going to vary from institution to institution. So I think my first piece of advice is sort of become familiar with what each institution that you're planning to apply to is asking of you, because you may need to spend a little bit of time writing a second essay about something like community or identity, or you might have, just an evening where you put together some sort of short answers that we can walk through a little bit too. So these are really intended to be an opportunity to help you showcase yourself a little bit more to the schools that you're applying to. And for a lot of institutions, they'll be asking some kind of question to the tune of, why are you interested in coming here? Or in our case, it is kind of, what is it about the experiences that you've had to this point in your life that has led you to apply to our institution? So schools are framing that question kind of differently, but I think a lot of institutions, definitely don't be surprised if you see it. A lot of institutions are asking a question, kind of trying to get at why you think that you're a good fit for their student body, or sort of what led you to apply to that institution in the first place. For supplemental essays, these can vary a lot. So there might be institutions, as I said, that are going to ask you to write another personal statement of sorts. It might be like a 500, 600 word sort of short essay, similar to your personal statement. There might be institutions that ask you to submit, I've seen schools that ask you to submit like a list of books that you've read recently, or a list on any topic of your choosing, or it might be shorter answers. So there might be a kind of 200-word piece that you have to write, or in Yale's case, we ask for these kind of short take answers that are 200 characters, and we ask for 4 of them. So there's a whole range of different things that you could be seeing in your supplemental essays. I will say that many highly selective colleges are asking students for supplemental essays or for some kind of supplemental writing. So definitely don't be surprised if you see these. And I would say, in your planning of how you're going to be filling out your applications and kind of keeping yourself on task with completing those applications on time, I would say to, again, definitely be familiar with the requirements for each of the institutions to which you're applying. As I said earlier, a lot of institutions will be asking a question to the tune of, why are you applying here? What makes you think that you're a good fit for this student body? So I would say this is definitely a great time to kind of get to know your institution well. I always like to say that I think digging around on social media, on a school's admissions account, or maybe on YouTube, seeing a kind of day in the life of a student at an institution can actually be a really, really helpful tool in giving you a sense of what your day to day might look like at an institution, or sort of what types of students are really excited about going to a certain kind of school, or things like that. I think, as much as it can feel kind of daunting to have to do whole other pieces of writing on top of the personal statement that I know students are sinking a lot of time and energy into, I think you should honestly be kind of excited to fill out these supplemental essays, because if anything, this is an additional opportunity for you to sort of showcase yourself in your application. Maybe you write your personal statement on something like your passion for theater, but you don't feel like you got to talk about the really important relationships that you have with a community that you're a part of at school, or your family, or something like that. And maybe you feel like, oh, I wish there was a way that I could have tied all of that together in my personal statement. I think that the supplemental essays are a really, really awesome opportunity for students to be able to touch on other aspects of themselves, of their identities, of the communities that they're a part of, to be able to kind of give us a fuller picture of who we might be admitting to our campus for the fall. And again, these are a great opportunity to stand out as well. So definitely take advantage of these space and approach these as thoughtfully as you're going to be approaching your personal statement. All right, some of the common prompts that you might see for supplemental pieces of writing, we touched on sort of why are you interested in this institution? Another popular one is what do you intend to study in college? Or I see a lot of schools asking about kind of what's a sort of academic curiosity that you have or something related to your academic interests that might not necessarily be exactly tied to what you plan to major in, but just a really great opportunity for you to showcase your academic curiosity and maybe how you would take advantage of different areas of study in college as well. A lot of students will use these spaces to talk about extracurriculars or maybe a work experience that you have or another way that you sort of spend your time. Again, something that maybe you didn't quite get to touch on in your personal statement. Maybe it's something that you list in your activities section that's important to you. Maybe that's a job that you have where you spend a lot of your time and you're really excited to be able to share a little bit more about that in a supplemental piece. Something that sparks your intellectual curiosity, again, as I mentioned, short answer or popcorn questions. So I can say for Yale specifically, we ask 4 questions that we call short take questions. And these are 200 characters each. Off the top of your head, we ask, what inspires you? If you could teach a college course or write a book or create a piece of art on any topic, what would it be and why? Or something else that isn't included anywhere else in your application. So these are really brief, but just intended to kind of give you a couple of different ways to sort of highlight different parts of yourself that might not otherwise be touched upon in your application. There are a lot of schools that are creating a lot of really creative and unique prompts as well. So write a letter to your future roommate is definitely one of my favorites, or a hashtag to describe yourself, or other things along those lines. So sometimes I think they'll feel pretty silly, but you should feel free to get creative with these. And I think my best piece of advice is, remembering that admission officers, as I hope we're kind of showing on the call today, admission officers are people too. I spend a lot of time sitting and, laughing at a really funny essay that I might read from a student, or seeing and appreciating how creative students can be with those short take questions where they have such limited space to kind of give me so much of their personality. So know that there really is another person on the other end of your writing. So you should feel free to be yourself, to showcase your personality, to show us what you're passionate about, and trust that there is kind of another person on the other side of that, reading and appreciating what you have to say. And just some general tips to leave you with before I pass it back. Some ways of kind of sharing your voice in your application. I think some of the good advice that we can offer, choose your own style. I think one of the kind of common pitfalls that I see with students who are working through their pieces of writing for their college applications is trying to kind of imitate something that you've seen online. Maybe you saw a TikTok of the essay that got me into XYZ school, or maybe you're going online and reading other people's college essays and trying to kind of emulate something that doesn't necessarily feel true to you. So I think you should definitely write in your own style, write in your own voice. I want to know like who you are authentically and how you're writing in a very genuine way. So I think starting there is always important. Feel free to kind of break things down and start over again, move things around as you see fit. You should definitely feel free to share your pieces of writing as you want to with people that you trust. And I think this doesn't just have to be, a college counselor. You can feel free to share your writing with a friend or a parent, a sibling, someone who knows you well, who can maybe give you some of that advice around, hey, is this something that really feels like my voice? Does this really feel true to me? So whoever that is in your life, you should definitely feel free to kind of bounce these things off of them, especially in terms of getting a sense of whether or not it feels like a good reflection of you. And I think making sure you clearly explain what you're writing about is a really underrated piece of advice. I think about this all the time when I read essays where students are writing about an event that they were a part of or a club that they're a member of, where it's something that I have never encountered before in my life, and maybe where they don't take that extra sentence or two just to kind of get me up to speed on what that actually is. Again, admission officers are people too, and as much as I can go to Google on my other screen and kind of try to figure out what you might be referring to, it is a lot easier if you just make sure that you're being clear in what you're talking about and leveling with someone who might not be familiar with the traditions of your home community or events that are popular at school or clubs or things like that. And in terms of some of the pieces of advice that we would recommend, things to maybe avoid in writing your essay, a listing of basic facts. I think especially for those pieces about why do you want to attend this institution, you don't need to tell me about our average class size or list off all of the professors that you can find on Google. I really want to know, what is it about you that drew you to this institution? Don't use the same essay for every institution either. I think there might be a lot of places where the supplemental questions might be asking the same thing across institutions. And I think in those cases, you can definitely use your best judgment and decide, hey, does this piece kind of feel like it fits both of these prompts well? But I think especially I can tell you more times than I would care to say, I will read an essay where a student has clearly written it for another institution and doesn't proofread and doesn't take the name of the other institution out. So I think this is, promotion for both proofreading and also just for kind of being mindful of approaching each of these prompts separately, and kind of thinking about whether or not, if you have a piece of writing that already fits that prompt, you might want to use that. But I would definitely just be careful around those things. Being too personal, I think, is another kind of trap that a lot of students fall into. And I think this goes along with students maybe feeling like they have to kind of disclose a lot of really heavy things that have happened to them, and feeling like you kind of have to do that in the college process in order for your writing to have an impact. And I would say that is definitely not the case. For a lot of students, that might be the right thing for you to talk about, something that happened to you or an important relationship that you have. But definitely do not be afraid to kind of keep it lighthearted. Again, knowing that we are, professionals and also people who don't know you very well. So thinking about the kind of impression that you're making right off the bat, just kind of being mindful of the information that you're sharing. And finally, don't rely too much on templates or engines in crafting your college essay. So I already said, kind of choose your own style, do something that feels authentic to your voice. And I think that this is also a really great place to talk about kind of AI in your college writing. This is something we get questions about all the time. And my personal philosophy on this is really, if you are using AI to craft your college essays, then I don't feel like you're approaching those essays in the way that we want you to. These should ultimately be pieces that are really personal to you. They should be in your genuine and authentic voice, and they should be really deeply rooted in your life experiences, your passions, and your opinions. So if you are going to an AI engine to kind of generate a college essay just to check a box, then I'm afraid that you might not be engaging in that kind of reflection, or process of kind of giving us a really authentic piece of writing that I know most institutions, if not all, are certainly looking for. So just some pieces of advice to kind of be mindful of in crafting both the supplemental essays and that personal statement as well.
So I want everybody to take a deep breath, relax. I hope after hearing from my colleagues about breaking down what personal statements are, and supplemental essays, I hope you feel better about where you're going with your college essay. And it's not as stressful as you think. So deep breaths and out. So as we wrap up today, I do want to leave you with a few final thoughts about your college essay. So, first, remember your essay should complement the rest of your application. So, this includes your transcript, your activities, your letters of recommendation. These already tell colleges a lot about what you've done. So, your essay is the added cherry on top, for your chance to share something deeper about who you are, as my colleagues have explained. So, this could be your perspective, your values, or an experience that helped shape you. Second, take the time to reflect on what's important for the admissions officers to know about you. As Macy stated, we are people. I love to read these essays and hear about all the wonderful things that you've done in high school, and help shape your community. So think about moments in your life that helped you grow, what challenged you, what things were you were passionate about. Often the best essays come from something simple but meaningful stories. Third, don't be afraid to ask for help. Once you've written your first draft, again, ask your teacher, a counselor, a parent, or a trusted friend to read it. They can help you catch the small mistakes and make sure that your message is clear. But remember, the essay should still sound like you. And finally, this is the most important one: have fun. So, this is one of the few moments the application process where you get to be creative and share your voice. I don't know about any of my other colleagues on this call, but I absolutely love reading the essays. Your stories matters, and there's no one else who can tell it better than you. So we're really excited for each of you as you begin this process. We hope today helped you make the essay feel a little less intimidating and a lot more possible. So thank you for all being here today, and we're happy to help any questions. But before you go, I also want to make sure that you know some additional resources that are available to you through our College Stars Network. On the screen, you'll see a QR code that you can scan with your phone. This can take you to our page where you can learn more about the other college and universities that are part of the network. These all the schools are committed to supporting students like you, and they offer a lot of opportunities that many students may not even realize exist. So when you scan the QR code, you'll be able to register for future programs and events like virtual workshops, college information sessions, and opportunities to connect with missions counselors from these universities. You'll also find resources that can help continue learning and preparing for college, including educational tools like Clan Academy and Schoolhouse. So if you haven't already, scan the QR code before you leave tonight so you can stay connected and continue exploring all of your college options. So before we do wrap up, I do want to let you know we did save some time for questions. So we know the college application and essay process can bring up a lot of different ideas and questions. So please feel free to ask anything that's on your mind in this chat. Thank you again for spending time with us today, and we're happy to open it up for some Q&A. So again, thank you for spending some time with us tonight, and we are so excited where your college journey takes you. Russell asks, are there any topics that you are tired of reading? Any of my colleagues want to jump on?
I'm happy to
I'm
jump
not.
in here. If you don't mind.
Yeah.
I receive this question all the time. And I think this sort of goes back also to kind of what we've been referencing on this call, or what I was kind of talking about in my section about sort of looking to what other students are doing in the college process. And maybe you're trying to kind of emulate that, or maybe you're just sort of unknowingly kind of comparing what you're doing to other students in the process. I would say, I mean, there are certainly topics that I see more frequently than others. But I would say that I have yet to see a really bad topic. I think students can almost always, if you are kind of being reflective, if you are being yourself, if you are writing about something that you are passionate about and something that you're really excited to kind of share with an admissions officer, then I don't think that there's necessarily a bad topic. I think it's really all about how you choose to write about it. So that would be my philosophy. I would say if you're worried about a topic maybe being common, or wanting to find something that's like, you are the only person in the world to write about this, I guarantee you, we see essays on all different kinds of topics. And I probably have yet to see a topic only one time in all of my time reading essays. So I would say just focus on your own piece. And if you are worried about your topic feeling kind of common, or maybe not being something that'll stand out kind of in the larger applicant pool, know that the emphasis, at least on our end of things, is much more about how you're writing about these things, how you're reflecting on them, than what you actually choose to write about.
I can answer Tatiana's question. So the question was, what are some more things you definitely shouldn't do in your essay? So I'm going to address two things that we already kind of talked about, and then I'll talk about some other things. So one, it is okay to talk about other people or how you've helped other people, but I see it really, really often that students will focus primarily or solely on the other person rather than your experience. So that's one thing. The other thing is, if you choose to write something yourself, you decide not to use something like a chat GPT, a lot of students will write something totally themselves, and then they'll think, okay, I need this to sound more professional, or I need this to sound a little bit better. And so they'll take what they've written, put it into chat gpt, and then or some other program, and suddenly it no longer sounds like the student. You'll be really surprised. We can kind of see the components of what's supposed to be there, but then it doesn't sound like you. We might read something else that's on your application and they sound totally different. So I would say best practices is just to use your own voice. Come up with this yourself, because it is at the end of the day about you. Another thing you probably should not do is And I've seen this before. Talk about the reasons why you don't want to get into that school, or reasons why you didn't think that that you were going to do the exact thing that you do now. It's okay that you had a little bit of a journey to get there, but very often we'll see students say, I didn't think I wanted to be a mechanical engineer, and I still don't, but I'm going to do it anyway. That there needs to be the why there. If you don't have if you don't have everything figured out, that's okay. Just be a little bit more thoughtful in those types of answers.
I can definitely help out with the next one. I think it's how informal should the essay be? I think Kevin kind of touched on that a little bit. It's, um, obviously don't throw it into Chat GPT because we can kind of read it when we're seeing it, and
Mhm.
or go crazy on the thesaurus. But depending on the institution and kind of what they're asking for, that's probably the level that you want to tailor your essays to. And I can jump on the next question too, because I know Kevin kind of had already touched on that one. Carl, a personal statement about being a transgender person in Oklahoma has made you a better person. Absolutely. I think that could be a great topic. I think Kevin kind of touched on it. We are trying to see how you have become the person you are today. So if that's part of your journey and you can kind of loop that into your essay, that's what we are trying to look at. So if this has been an important part of your journey, to be who you are today and who we're going to admit into one of our institutions, then we definitely want to know about it. Like we said, we if it's important to you, I'm looking back at the slides too, but if it's important to you and how you became the person you are today, we definitely want to hear about it. So I think that would be definitely be a good topic to touch on.
The next question is, should we assume that the person reading our essay knows what we wrote in the rest of our application? For the University of South Carolina, person that reads your essay is reviewing your whole application. So we'll get the bigger picture of holistic review of the student. And so the essay is just one part, and we also look at your test scores if you like to submit those, in your grades. And so that will be it is one person reading it. You may have more than one person. For some institutions, they do more than one person reviewing the application, but I think it's safe to assume that one person is reading the entire application.
I can go on the next one too from Pine. The question is a farm background something an admissions officer would want to hear about? Again, that is absolutely for, I think, most of us, right? If we want to hear about the whole person, and this is especially true for like the supplemental essays, if there wasn't an opportunity for you to add your farm background into your essay, that's where you can kind of shine in those supplemental essays or a personal statement if you can slip it in there, especially when I'm reading applications for, let's say, someone trying to get into our agricultural programs out here in Arizona, which are very important to us as a public university. So I definitely want to know if you were involved in farm background. I know we have FAA in Arizona and other things that students do in high school, and I want to hear about all of that because it is relevant to your application. Good question.
Looks like Tatiana had asked, does it look okay for most universities if your interest for your major you are applying for has emerged recently because of that isn't really connected to your whole high school career? So when it comes to your essays, anything that we will want to read what's interest to you. So think about it more of not what the university wants to hear, but more what you would love to tell the university about you. So anything that you would like that highlights and speaks to your interest, to your major of interest, I think you need to highlight that. So you think of it in the lens of what can you do for the university or the institution's community, and how your interest in your emerging major or area of interest can better support that, and not more of your high school career. Just really depending on the prompt that you're trying to answer based on the institution that you're applying for.
Yeah, if I can add on to that as well, just because this is a
Yeah.
question that I receive all the time too. I think a lot of students are really worried about kind of having a maybe a spike in their applications, or having, this is sort of the type of student I'm going to be in my application. I know that I want to go to medical school, so I am going to write all of my essays about medicine, and all of my activities will be related to it and things like that. I think we as admission officers are also really aware of the fact that you are probably 17 when you're applying to college, and that a lot of the time that you've been in high school, depending on the kind of thing that you're interested in pursuing, maybe in college, you might not have access to things in high school that would be sort of preparing you for a career in something like engineering or philosophy or something like that. So I think just kind of thinking about this idea of an interest that has sort of emerged more recently in your high school career. I think a lot of us in kind of the admission side of things are expecting that you are probably going to come to college and sort of find those things that you're really passionate about or dig more deeply into those passions. And I can at least say for us, we are not putting a lot of stock into sort of what you say that you want to do coming into college, knowing that maybe when you come to an institution, you're going to spend a lot of time exploring and finding new things to be passionate about as well. So don't worry if kind of all of the pieces of your application don't necessarily line up with exactly what you think you want to do at that time. But if you think that you do know what you want to do and you're really passionate about it, then you should absolutely feel free to dig into that.
Oh, Naomi, I love your question. Can you give an example of some of the best essays you read or have stayed with you during your career where those essay strengths were? And what were those essay strengths were? For me, there was a student that um, had a younger sibling. The sibling had special needs. And so the sibling was really excited about birthdays. He loved birthdays. And so to give back to their community in food insecurity areas, they created birthday boxes. So I learned that how you can make a birthday cake without baking a cake. It was some type, he named all the ingredients. And then they gave you just sign up a form and the student will fill it out, or the person will fill it out and the student will deliver a birthday box. So you can bake a cake, it'll come with balloons, everything else. So that's something that that student did for their community. And I absolutely loved it.
I love that, the birthday cake. It reminds me of like the peanut butter exercises that we used to do in like grade school.
Yeah.
I've had a lot of cool essays that I've read. One of the things I really like the most is when I recognize the student I'm reading, because I've talked to this student for like years. So I know it's not specific to, and what topic I like for the essay, but sometimes I'm like, oh, I remember that student when I showed up to their sophomore day, and oh, I talked to them their junior year, and now they're finally applying, and it's like, yes, it's so exciting for me to see those things. In terms of topics, there are some that have been really touching, and especially when, again, I go back to, I connect it to the student, and it helps me, piece together that whole student and not just see their grades on my end.
Okay. And Macy's answering that question. So Candace asks if I'm a multifaceted of interest, I focus on a few or could a media we're heavily interested in could be used in that. For me, I'm a big Zelda fan. Okay. And also if I want to become a medical doctor, but I love social sciences and that's what I want as my career, then how should I convey that?
I'm happy to answer this one too. So I love that you have a lot of interests. I love Legend of Zelda too myself. But I think in terms of writing your essay, you can always kind of you don't have to major in one specific area to get into med school, and that's what we tell our students all the time. A lot of students come in and think they have to do like a chemistry major or a biology major or a physiology major. So you can major in many different things. I know many students that will major in like psychology, for example, or family studies and human development, and do the minor in the pre-med sciences to be eligible to apply to our med school. So that's kind of something that you can think about when shaping that essay, because you can kind of pull from your medical interests to your family studies and human develop, or I'm sorry, to your not family studies and human development. You said social sciences interest. Family studies and human development could fall under that, and kind of to piece it all together and see how it can shape you. And really, if, when you do get to be a medical doctor, that's what's going to make you stand out. Your interest for Legend of Zelda and social sciences combined with the medical sciences. So wrap that, find a way to include that in your essay, and that'll really make you stand out.
So thank you all for sending all these wonderful questions. Again, I highly encourage if you have any specific questions to certain institutions, reach out to those institutions directly. reach out to the admissions rep for those institutions. But again, we are here to help all your way through your college application journey. If you're a senior this year or even a freshman on this call, we are here to help you in every step of that process. So thank you again for joining us in tonight, and we hope you have a wonderful evening.